everybody, I am Liz and I can't believe that it is September already. But I have read some fantastic books last month in August and I can't wait to talk to you about all of them. I completed 5 books in August, and then at the end of the video I'll talk about some of the books I am currently reading. The first book I finished reading was An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. This book was one of the only books I actually finished during the booktubeathon that took place the last of July and the beginning of August. And so I primarily listened to the audiobook on this one, but I did follow along a lot for the physical book copy. I have to say I really enjoyed this book to the point where the characters pissed me off, which is so refreshing, seeing a story that is so realistic that it can really just tick you off when characters behave irresponsibly. So I actually ended up rereading the first 5 chapters because I was a little bit confused with timelines and also what was going on. So the main premise of this story is we have 2 newlyweds. There is Celestial and Roy, and about a year or so after they get married, they're on their anniversary and Roy gets arrested for rape, even though he did not commit the crime. It went to trial and he was sentenced to 12 years in jail. So it's a very interesting, very shoddy situation, and this takes place with a lot of letters and commentary about their marriage and how it kind of dissolves and falls apart during the 5 years he's actually in prison. Celestial actually begins this relationship with a childhood friend, and a lot of things spiral, and it's very, very interesting, and the ending quite honestly pissed me off. But it pissed me off in such a good way because, like I said, this is very realistic. I loved the writing and how it just really dives into a lot of the complexities of these characters, and so I have to say I really, really enjoyed this book, and it gets a solid 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I finished was Their Fractured Light by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. This is the 3rd and final book in the Star-Crossed series, and I did not want the book to end. I put off the last 5 chapters so long because I was not ready for the story to end, even though I wanted it to end because I wanted to know how they were going to go with this crazy situation, and I was not disappointed. This book's 2 main characters are Sophia and Gideon. Sophia is really trying to get into the LaRue Industries to tear it down, and then Gideon, he's a hacker and he's doing the same thing but for different reasons, different purposes, and different means to an end, and they team up and so many things happen. We get Tarver and Lilac come back, and Jubilee, Chase, and Flynn, so everybody kind of teams up in the end for this end-all battle royale space adventure, and just to really tackle the issues and the conspiracies and the problems with the LaRue industry. And so it was so fantastic. I love this series so much. I can't believe it took me so long to read it because it's been on my TBR, my want to read list, for years, and I am so glad I finally did so. This was a very solid conclusion. Things wrapped up a little bit too nicely, but I still appreciated how it ended, and I definitely see myself going back in the future to reread it and revisit these amazing characters. So this solid end gets a 4 out of 5 stars. Then I finished The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, and I am so excited for the movie for this, guys, to see how they incorporate everything that happens in the story. It made me cry so many times. There's so many feelings in it. I really felt for our main character, Star, and how she really handles this stressful situation that she's been thrown into, which is a very common situation for African American Black families, especially in poorer cities, poorer areas and regions. The premise of the story is we have Star. She has just been witness to a fatal shooting, murder of her best friend. They were driving after a party. It was a bad situation, wrong place, wrong time. A cop pulls them over, and in this traffic stop, things happen, and the cop ends up shooting and killing her friend. And so in the midst of her friend Khalil's funeral and her dealing with the trial and dealing with the aftermath, the traumatic emotional scars that she has faced with this, and also the gang violence and everything back from her past, it all just kind of swoops together in this tearful, painful story, and I absolutely loved it so much. I love how supportive Star's family is, and how Star's really just trying to figure everything out, even though it's tearing her apart, tearing her away from her friends, her boyfriend, her family even, but she all tries to make sense of this traumatic event, this traumatic experience. And so I really, really enjoyed it. The only downside was a lot of the friend hate and the issues that happened within the story. I don't want to really give it away, but I know the reasoning behind it, and it was very important and pivotal. So I am very pleased and happy that I read it, and I will definitely remember this story for life, and I am going to give it a solid, successful 4.75 out of 5 stars. Alright guys, the next book number 4 that I finished, give me a little cheer because this book has sat on my shelf for about 4 years now, and I finally read it. And that is Leaving Time by Jodi Picoult, and I can't believe it took me so long to read this book. I am embarrassed. It was so good, and I already feel like I want to reread it because I enjoyed it just so much. The premise of the story is our main character, Jenna Metcalf, is trying to find her mother. Her mother went missing 10 years ago, and now she finally feels that she's old enough and she has the means and the capabilities to go and look for her herself. She seeks a detective and a psychic to try to help her solve the case of what happened to her mother 10 years ago. Her mother is an elephant biologist, and she studies elephants, and in the past she lived on an elephant sanctuary where there was a murder that happened the very same night that she went missing. And so there's very interesting things that happen. Her father is in a mental institution, and I think he has bipolar disorder or something like that, and he has been locked in his psychosis for 10 years. So it's very interesting, very complex. Lots of things happen in this story that I did not expect or anticipate. Especially, I thought that this was more of just kind of a solving crime story, but there's so much more paranormal elements to it with them bringing in a psychic. So it was very interesting, very involved, and I am proud to give this story a 5 out of 5. And then we have 5, the last book I finished in August. My most conflicting feelings, conflicting rating of the year, and that is The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey. This is an alien invasion story of survival, and I do not know how I feel about this. My previous video where I talk about books I'm conflicted about, I have a pretty in-depth review, and my feelings haven't changed since because I don't feel that this is a proper alien sci-fi story to me, if you've read this book, maybe you understand where I'm coming from. If this was marketed as just a survival story, then I would have very different, very positive reviews about it. But because it's an alien invasion and they are starting the 5th wave of the alien invasion, and I just, reading it, the romance was fine. I liked it. I was fine with it. It was just the alien part. And a lot of the writing about the explanation of the aliens just drove me bonkers. I was not a fan of it. I didn't approve of it. It was very conflicting. I have a lot of harsh and positive feelings about the story, and so I don't know if I'm going to continue on. And so I extend to you guys, should I read on? Should I go on to the Infinite Sea? Is it worth it? Because I have no idea what I'm going to do. And it's harsh because I'm usually so like, yes, I'm continuing on, or no, I'm not continuing on with stories. I've never been in that situation where I don't know what I'm going to do. And so that is why this is really hard. I still don't even really know my rating at this point. I am fairly okay with giving it a 3 out of 5, but I wouldn't give it anything higher than that as I stand right now. Alright guys, there you have the books. Please comment down below if you've read any of them. I want to share your thoughts and feelings about these amazing stories, or maybe even if you have conflicting ideas like I did with the 5th wave. Now we're going to brush all of August aside and get to the books I am currently reading in September. Now guys, you know what I'm reading because they weren't in my August wrap-up. And so, for the 4th time, these books are still on my current reading list of this month. We have Night Film by Marisha Pessl, and then obviously we have Obsidio by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I've actually been really heavily reading this the past 2-3 days, and so hopefully I can finish it tonight. That is the goal, but we'll see what happens. Lastly, on my current reading list, we have Scarlet by Marissa Meyer. This is the 2nd book in the Lunar Chronicles and follows a loose retelling of Little Red Riding Hood. I am about 20% of it, maybe 25% of the way through it currently right now, and I'm enjoying it. I feel like it is going a little slow, though it's not as fast-paced as Cinder, so we'll see if it picks up as I continue reading it, and I hope it does. So we'll see what happens. Fingers crossed. Alright guys, there you have the books I am currently reading and the books I finished in August. Please let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these books and what you've thought about them. And please let me know what book you are currently reading and if you enjoy it. And I hope you stick around for my next videos, as I plan on doing 3 videos a week, one every Wednesday, one every Friday, and one every Sunday. If things happen and get jumbled up, which I hope they don't, just follow me on Twitter and you'll get all the updates. Thank you guys so much for watching and I love you. Bye!